Weekly, GarageBand, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand Weekly. Ooh. Need an answer to your question. John, you'll have a suggestion. He's a fountain of all knowledge. I think he might have gone to GarageBand College. What he doesn't know, we'll try and find out. So join the chat and give him a shout. Hey, John. Hey, John. GarageBand Weekly.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's better with the fader up. Welcome to GarageBand Weekly for another week here on Studio Live. Today, brought to you this week by Songtember. Yes, it is that time of the year. Time for our Song in a Month challenge. We call it Songtember, and you can tune in and find out all about it by heading on over to studiolivetoday.com/Songtember. It's your one-stop shop for all your Songtember goodness. Over there you'll find the preview video where we kick things off. You can find out what it's all about. Our live launch party is in just 3 days' time. You can also jump in there and check out last year's playlist for all of the Songtember goodness from 2022. All the places you can follow me and all the Songtember goodness. And as well as down here, our friends of Songtember, and I finally added our main dude, Jamie Mallender, with a little extra there as well. So check it all out, because creating, recording and releasing your own music is a super good way to spend a day. Speaking of spending a day, hello to you. Welcome aboard. If you're here live, say g'day. If you have any questions as we go through the show, all you need to do is just put a big fatty old Q in front of your comment, because we're going to be diving into a feature topic. We've got a few little news and notes to talk about as well. And we're going to learn about chords today. So yeah, don't worry if you're not a theory person. If you're like, we're gonna get all technical. We're gonna do a practical kind of demonstration with our chords. We're gonna take it slowly, take it easy, and guide you through. So if you're an absolute expert, you'll know most of this stuff anyway. But you never know. I tend to find that sometimes you pick up a thing or two, even if you're really proficient in something. Maybe just an idea. Maybe you never knew the difference between a ninth chord and an add ninth. I didn't until this morning. I had to look it up. So we'll be talking about that a little while. Hello to everyone who is here. G'day to Mark. Hello to Defalcro and Jade Star. Slick Riddles. Close enough. Slick Riddles in the house. Hello to Neo Guste. Hello, Rockin' Pneumonia. As I said, if you do have a question or if you want to make any comments, go and throw them right here in the chat and we'll talk about that. So, the news and notes are pretty simple this week. I've kind of not buried the lead. I've put the lead right up on Front Street, which is that it is indeed Songtember time. So if you do want to check out all the Songtember details, you can. Just to give you the absolute briefest of explanations, we've been doing this for the last 4 years. This is year number 5 for Songtember. And what it's all about is I create, record and release an entire song in the month of September. Now, that's okay, but everyone's doing that. But what I ask you to do is to participate as well. So I invite you to join the community, and what we've been doing is everyone in the community creates, records and releases a song. Now, releasing doesn't mean you have to put it out there to Spotify or whatever. Releasing can be as simple as sticking it on SoundCloud or a YouTube or a slaps.com or somewhere, but it means finishing. And if you come over here to the Songtember page, if you scroll on down, the number one reason that I say why people should do this is to finish songs. Now, a lot of folks are finishing a lot of songs, and that's cool. But sometimes so for some folks, it's actually a slowdown, because maybe you're creating a song every week and maybe you're not putting that effort into just making it the absolute best it can be. For other folks, maybe you're getting 50%, 80%, 96% of a song done and you're not finishing it. So for a lot of those folks, this is like an impetus to actually get something done, share it. The second reason that I talk about this and why we do Songtember every year is that sharing your music is the best way to learn. You've got blind spots. Trust me, with your music, you've got blind spots, which means that there's some things that you've just been doing forever. You don't know that they're maybe not working for your music, but other people listening might. And the more you share your music, the more feedback you get. Doesn't mean that you have to take on absolutely everything that anyone ever says about your songs, but it just means that you're going to have more feedback and learn more about your own creations, which is always a good thing, at least in my humble opinion. The only other bit of news I wanted to talk about, because let's be honest, in the world of GarageBand, in the world of Apple, there's not a whole lot going on at the moment. But the other thing I did want to briefly mention is that Apple's iPhone 15 event is rumored, because these things are never sort of set in stone and we haven't got any confirmation yet, but rumored for the 12th of September. And what are we expecting to see? Maybe a new Apple Watch, maybe a new Apple Watch Ultra, probably the iPhone 15, maybe some new AirPods. It'll be the Apple event. It'll be the iPhone event. So usually what we get at this time of the year is new iPhones. And my question for you is, what can Apple do with a new iPhone? In terms of, for a lot of folks, I know that many of you use iPads for your GarageBand creations. Many folks also use iPhones. But what is your view on this? What do you think Apple can finally add? Because let's be honest, the last couple of years, so for instance, I have the iPhone 12 and I have the iPhone 14. Both the Pro versions. The only real change here is that the camera on this one is slightly chonkier because they've improved the camera. That's about it. For the last maybe 3 years, since the iPhone 11, the form factor, the features, there hasn't been a whole lot of difference. So I don't know. Apple are kind of at this point now where with iPhones and iPads and Macs and everything that you use for your GarageBand creations, there's not a whole lot of incentive to upgrade. Now, the biggest rumor and the biggest thing that may be coming is USB-C. So I think that could be interesting to see whether they actually finally ditch the Lightning port and go to USB-C. There's been a lot of pressure from the European Union for them to have a compatible device, meaning that it's going to be compatible with all the universal standards as opposed to their own Lightning standard. Now, they've got reasons why they want to sell Lightning stuff. They make more money from it. They license out the ability to create Lightning products to a lot of other companies. And from a user perspective, I must admit, as much as I am annoyed by Lightning and would be happy to replace it with USB-C, I still got a lot of Lightning gear. I got a lot of Lightning cables plugged in around because my old iPads and all my iPhones in our family. We're a family of four, and we're a 4 iPhone family. So yeah, it's going to be interesting if they do go USB-C. There's going to be this changeover period because, let's be honest, my children aren't getting a new iPhone for a very long time, and I probably won't even get the iPhone 15 or 16 because, again, the 12s and the 14s are doing so well. Mark says he's waiting for the iPhone 15 to come out so he can get the iPhone 14 at a discount price. Spot on. And that's what a lot of people are doing. Like the same, I'm in the market now for a new laptop. I was borrowing one from Apple for a while. I kind of think I'm going to get an M1 MacBook Air, because I don't need the power of the M2. I don't do anything that sort of crunchy on my Mac. So I'm potentially going to end up with the M1 MacBook Air because it's going to be a lot cheaper than waiting around, than buying the latest and greatest every time. Odd Song Timber Mark says, getting past scratch track is my biggest obstacle. I'm a lazy. Yes. And that's the thing. It's new and exciting. When you start creating a song, it's new and exciting, and it's super fun because you feel like you're getting your teeth into it and you're actually creating something new. When you get to those closing stages, it's less fun and exciting. It's like when you're working. I remember back in the work days when a brand new project started, you wanted to get started on it because it was new, it's exciting, it's interesting. If you were halfway through a project, finishing it, getting over that hump at the end was always one of the hardest things to do. So that's where Songtember gives you what I like to call positive time pressure. Question. So yeah, so from Emilio, maybe the iPhone 15 is going to go up to 2 terabytes on the storage capacity. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. The reason being is that the A series and the M series chips are almost identical now. And Apple have shown that they can put 2 terabytes of storage on a fairly small M chip for things like the iPad. So it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility, I'm sure, to be able to put a 2 terabyte as opposed to 1 terabyte on a phone. And given that if you're shooting even photos, if you're shooting raw photos or HDR video with the amazing cameras that you have on board these things now, they take up a lot of space. Like, I would not recommend anyone get a phone with any less than, 256 is the base minimum. 512 comfy, 1 terabyte is kind of what, if you're going to be doing audio and video and camera work on that. That's my view, is that more storage the better. I made the mistake of getting the 256 gigabyte storage in my Mac Mini, and I've been paying the price ever since. So don't be like me. Do what I say, not what I do, and get as much storage capacity as you can. I've always said, to Mark's point before, if you could afford an iPhone 14 with 512 gig or an iPhone 15 with 256, 14 every day, twice on Sunday, because the advancements in the processor, let's be honest, there are no apps that use the full processing potential of the latest iPhones or the latest iPads. GarageBand doesn't even scratch the surface. Logic Pro and Final Cut Pro, unless you're doing like in Final Cut, multiple streams of 8K video, you're not touching the edges of that M2 chip if you've got the latest and greatest, or even an M1. So yeah, keep that in mind, that you often can go a processor family lower, and if it means that you can get more storage in your devices, because let's be honest, if you're using GarageBand, you got a lot of media files, even if they're just audio files, but especially if you're using video files as well. So that's the news and the notes. If you have any other thoughts or if you have any other comments and you're watching either live or on the replay, feel free to jump down in the comments and let me know. And if you enjoy what we do around here, thumbs up. So feel free to give the old thumbs up down in the below section as well. Are we ready? Are we good? Let's talk about chords, shall we? So, when we're talking about chords are the harmonious basis of pretty much any piece of music. And a chord, in its simplest form, is a triad. So, the difference between a harmony and a chord is that a chord is generally going to have 3 notes, whereas a harmony is going to be 2 notes. Now, yes, you can have power chords that are like just a couple of notes, that are like the 1 and the 5, but more often than not, you're talking about at least 3 notes. If you want to remember how to play a chord, just pretend you're at the airport. The red zone is for loading and unloading of passengers only. So you got the idea. So what are we talking about with chords? And when you're creating a song, what do you need to know? Well, your basics is your major and your minor. But let's take a step back, because we're going to demonstrate this here in GarageBand. I want to show you how you can set this up yourself if you want to play along at home. Sometimes it can be fun to play along at home. We're going to come back out to here. What I've got set up is one track. I've got the electric piano on there, but that can be a little hard to hear. So why don't we go with the absolute classic, which is the classical grand piano, which is one that we're going to be able to hear nice and clearly. Turn that volume up. So add your classical grand here. I've also added a guitar. I've added the Roots rock guitar, so we can show you what the chords, the translation between chords being played on a keyboard and on a guitar. We're going to have to adjust these volumes. We'll put the piano up and the guitar down because of the way GarageBand balances things out. It's going to blow our eardrums out. So let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. If you want to make sure that you can follow along, turn on your note labels here. How to do that is up in your advanced settings, up here, tap on advanced, and then, no, it's not, it's in the other advanced settings part. So let's just show you where that is. If you go to your settings option here, you can actually scroll down here on the left and go to, because this will help you with learning about chords. We'll come down here and we'll go to GarageBand, and then over here, you've got keyboard note labels. Turn that one on, and then magically your GarageBand will have all of these note labels. So if you're in the key of C major, let's turn this track into a C major. At the moment we're in A major. C major is like your home base. Have you heard of middle C? That's the middle of your piano. And your C chord is going to be C, E, and G. That's your basic triad of a C. Now, if you, like me, you don't really love getting into the theory side of things, you don't need to worry about it. If you can count, you can work out what a chord is and how to play it. So with your major chord, what that is it's 4 half steps or semitones up from the C, and then it's 3 up to the G. And that is the same for every major chord based on your root note. So your root note is the C, we're in C major, your root note's the C, and then you can even go up to the top C there. So that's your basic chord pattern and chord structure there. Now with a minor, it's the opposite. It's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So your major and your minor, you can easily find just by counting. 4 and 3 is your major. 3 and 4 is your minor. There you go. Who knew? If you've never touched a keyboard before, you can now know how to play a major or a minor chord. And here's the cool thing, is that if you want to change around, like people will say to me, but when I get into other keys, I don't know how to play them. What about an F sharp minor? I mean, what notes do we play? Well, we do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. So regardless of where you are on the keyboard, it's just going to be that 4-3 or that 3-4 pattern that you need. Let's see how these actually translate using the chords mode in GarageBand, because this is the cool thing. If that's too tricky and you're like, I don't want to have to work out how to play a C major and then an F major and then a G major, we can actually use the chords function over here, which is on the right hand side, and this will change you into magic. We can now suddenly just play all of these chords without having to know how to actually phrase them. Now, what are these 4 buttons? So why do you have 4 different sets of chords? Well, these are your chord inversions, and these can vary up what the chord's going to sound like based on what the bottom note is and the top note. So to show you what this is doing, if we come back here, if we're playing the C major, we could also then bring it up to there. We could bring it up to there, we could bring it up to there. So it's going to. So that will just change the chord inversions, which is just a fancy way of saying, are you starting on the first note, the third note, or the fifth note? Simple. These ones down here are your bass. Now in GarageBand, your chords, your bass notes for your chords are only going to be the root, the fifth lower, and then the root an octave lower. So if you look at, there's your C chords. Now there's a way to actually change what your bass root note is by changing up the chords, which we'll get to in just a jiffy. It's a little bit more advanced. Now your minors, so over here you've got your minors, your E minor, A minor, D minor. They are exactly the same root notes as well. So they're just making those minor chords. So when you're here in GarageBand, if we wanted to record something in, let's just record in a little chord progression here in C major. And the cool thing is there that you can use the different inversions to give you a different kind of feel for all of those. Now, I wasn't using the bass notes at all there. I was just using the chords in the middle there. You'll know if you've used GarageBand before, you've also got autoplay here. So if instead of that, if we duplicate this one out, if you didn't want to do something yourself manually, you can actually turn on autoplay. So let's just go with a very basic autoplay. We'll turn that around to number 2. So this time we can actually just tap on those buttons and record in a nice little pattern that will use the notes from the chord that we're tapping on. So we'll do this again. Let's hit the C. And you got a little bit of help there. You can make something sound kind of cool there just using the chords mode here in your GarageBand. Hello, Kid Kane. Hello, Cash Dragon. Hello, Rena. Welcome aboard. Thanks for being here. Yeah, we're in school. School's in, and we're talking chords here today, hopefully to give you some ideas around how to use chords in your GarageBand projects, but obviously completely cross-compatible with anything else that you're going to be doing. So that's your major and your minor. We've talked inversions. And we've talked about how you can find the major or the minor. Let's just do another quick test. Say we wanted to find D minor. Remember, 3, 4. I love D minor because it's all white notes. But if you wanted to say do B flat minor, there you go. There's your B minor chord. 3 and then 4. So that's how you can find those. Now, so that's the basics of there. And your major chords are like your happy sounds. They're like your real rock and party sounds. Your minor chords are your scary, spooky, emotive chords. And that's the basis of that. Let's talk about suspension. Ooh, we're in suspense because you might notice that sometimes you'll see a chord and there's a whole bunch of stuff you can put after it. In fact, if we go into our chords mode here and we go to the edit chords, which is in here under your little settings option and edit chords, you'll notice here that we've got the ability to have minor chords, major chords, diminished chords, augmented chords, and sustained chords. And too many things to think about. But let's go through these one by one because they're actually not as hard and daunting as you think they are. Now, sustained chords, and again, I should have said this right at the front. I'm not a theory expert. I did theory studies decades ago, and I'm just I got enough knowledge to get myself into trouble and hopefully help folks out of trouble. So when you're talking about suspensions, the suspension means that instead of that middle note being on the third, you actually suspend it up to the fourth. So that's your suspended fourth, and that's your suspended second. So that middle note there, I'll put the red marker on there. So there's your C, E, G of your C major. But if you want to have a suspended fourth, instead of being C, E, it's C, F, G. So you're using the fourth of that scale. So C, D, E, F, G. And you get that nice hanging note. And the reason it's called a suspended chord is it's kind of, can you feel that it can't... Whoop, I keep pressing the wrong button. Let's undo whatever I just did. I've got to redo. I pressed something. I think I must have pressed a keyboard shortcut to undo because it's undone everything I've done. There we go. Let's go back to the piano. All right. So back to the keyboard. So suspended on the fourth. Amen. So if you go to church, you know that amen. So it's called suspended because you're in suspense because you want to get back to that chord. And it's something that you can use in your songwriting, that if you're doing like it's a nice way to have that. Suspended 2, if you ever see that sus2 at the end of a chord, same sort of thing, but now you're in amen. Now you're being suspended below. And again, you can use all these in. And quite often you'll find that songwriters, you'll hear it now all the time. You'll hear suspended chords used everywhere because a lot of songwriters, like a Ben Folds, might do a. So a lot of time you'll see people using the major, suspended fourth, major, suspended second, major, just to move between. Like so. So suspended chords are very simple, very easy to kind of get your head around. We'll move into seventh chords because they're probably my favorite of all the chords. I love. If you've listened to my music, you know on the guitar I love using an E7 and an A7 and a B7 and a C7. I'm always throwing seventh chords, either major sevenths or standard sevenths as well. Dominant seventh. So yeah, good question actually. Who actually plays piano? Let us know. Let us know your theory, level of theory, whether you've actually ever dived into this sort of stuff. Sexy extended minor, ninth, seventh chords. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. We're building to it because you got to love a good ninth chord. So let's talk about while we're still doing the suspended. You could also do say like a seventh suspended. So you can resolve from the C7 to the 5. So if you're suspending. So a seventh chord is simply adding the seventh note or the major seventh. So there's your major seventh, your minor seventh, but a lot of times folks will use especially the suspended 4. You'll see sus 4 seventh in a lot of songs because it just gives you that. or that real sort of expectant hanging tone where you're just like, can this resolve already? I'm feeling tense. Yay, resolved. So a lot of different chords when you're using suspension chords is around where it's going to resolve to. All right, should we talk about seventh chords? Because they're one of my faves of all time, is the seventh chord. Now, if we come back out to our chords mode here, I'll add them in here because I'll show you again how we can change up these chords. So let's say instead of me just wanting to do, I wanted to create something more jazzy here. We'll just we'll mute out those. We'll create ourselves a new track. Tap, duplicate, and come down to here. So let's go to our chords mode. Again, to change your chords, tap at the top right here and hit Edit Chords. So instead of being just a standard C, take that off. Instead of being a standard C major, what if we wanted this to be a seventh chord, a C major 7? Turn off autoplay. That's going to make it too hard. We'll go back to our edit chords here. All right, so there's our C major 7th. Or we could have our C. We could have our regular C7, or C minor 7. Actually, this is weird. So GarageBand doesn't seem to have a C dominant 7th. Well, am I missing something here? You can do a diminished and you can do augmented, but you can't do a regular C. Oh, there. So C major. Okay, so you've got to do C major is the key, but there's a difference between a 7th chord and a major 7th chord. So let's talk about these two things here now. So your C major 7, that's just your C7 chord. You can see it represented by it just having C and 7 there. If we bring it down as C major 7 is denoted by this C with a big M and the 7, not the milkshake big M. And that's a different sound. So what's the difference here? Why do we have two different 7th chords? Well, if we come back to the keyboard, it's easier to show it over here. So if we're in C, the major scale has a B as its 7th note. That's your 8th note, that's your 7th note. So the major 7th will just play the 7th major note, whereas your 7th chord actually brings it down a semitone. So it actually, to kind of get that hang. So it's not really the 7th note. It's a suspension of the 7th note really, because it's coming down, but it's coming down a semitone there. So that's your C7 chord. Bring it up onto the B for your C major 7. And you can hear that they've got different feelings. Like this one, like the major 7th chords, and I actually love using these in the minor key. They just sort of sound a bit serene, very kind of lo-fi feel. Versus your. So if you're using that sort of chord, you're going to get a very different feeling. Now, if you want that real. So if you're playing like a bluesy, jazzy sort of thing, you want that 7th that's going to be hit a little bit different. So play around with that and enjoy your 7ths and your major 7ths. And again, to get these, there's your major 7th. And if we go to our edit chords again, you can see that we have our major, well, that's the key signature. We need edit chords. All right, here we go. So we're on our C. And we can do that. Why don't we jump? Should we jump to 9th chords? Someone was talking about 9th chords before. 9th chords are really cool because we're adding the 9th. In fact, we're using the 9th. So here's your C major 9th. Now we're getting jazzy, right? And you might be asking, well, I know that there's 8 notes in a scale. Isn't the 9th note just the 2nd note? Wouldn't it be the same as playing? Yeah, it actually kind of is, but the difference is you're actually playing the 7th, but adding the 9th. So you're playing it you're actually playing the 7th chord but adding a 9, as opposed to... The difference is, and if you're wondering again why you have a 9th chord and an add 9 chord, your 9th chord has everything in there, whereas we go back to our edit chords. If you just go with an add 9, you can hear it's got more gaps in there because it's not playing that full 7th. You get a... Why do birds suddenly up? Yeah. So yeah, you'll instantly start hearing these different chords in different things that you play. Moonlight Sonata is my favourite piece by Beethoven. Had his head on the piano to feel it because he went deaf. Yeah, I know. Isn't that bad? Yeah. My mum does. She tries to school me in the right way to do it. She doesn't understand MIDI. There you go. G'day, Tommy Jack. Can find my way around a keyboard, but definitely not a pianist. Yeah, I'm kind of the same there. Rena says, when I was little, my woodwind playing father taught me chords on the piano. I always played by ear and hated piano lessons, so never had them. Then in college, the piano prof let me jump into intermediate. Yeah, that's the way to do it, isn't it? A lot of us sort of did that. Like, you didn't want to learn this sort of stuff back in the day, and then we did. Then you're like, oh, I wish I had only learned it. We're not going to cover a whole lot because, look, there's a lot more theory to kind of cover here. We'll jump over to the guitar in a moment so that we can show you the difference over there. But there's 2 more words that you've probably heard, and that is diminished and augmented. So what is a diminished and an augmented chord? Well, remember how your major is your 3 and your 4? Sorry, your 4 and your 3. And remember how your minor is your 3 and your 4? Well, guess what a diminished is? It's 3 and 3. So you get a... Sorry, I'm not good with my diminished because I don't use them a whole lot. So it's... There's your next diminished. So instead of doing your triad like that, you bring it up, and again it can like, and then resolving it back again. So using diminished chords just means that. So if you see a C major, then a C minor, and then a C diminished, you will know what to do with it. What is augmented? Well, if diminishing is reducing it, augmented is adding to it. See how they do these things? So augmented is just a 4 and a 4. So, oh, we've got rid of our piano. I'm doing something. There's something that I'm doing that's an undo function. I think it's the double triple finger tap. I think is doing some undoing because I think there is actually a weird shortcut, accessibility shortcut that I always forget. I think it is actually. Something like that. Anyway, so yeah, your augmented is bringing it up there, and you've probably heard a lot of sort of chord progressions that might go augmented. So what that's doing is it's taking it from a C major to a C major augmented to what is basically an inverted A minor to what is a C7, but just without the 5th root. So without knowing what these are, without knowing what a diminished or an augmented chord is, you're probably using them in your songs because you're probably just adding in or removing a particular note, but you're just going, oh, that actually just sounds kind of cool. I kind of dig it. Now there's a few other things within the chords section here. If we go to our... We're going to go back to the chords mode to edit chords. Go up to the top here, go to edit chords. So as well as your majors and your minors, your diminished, your augmented, your sustained, fourth, your sustained, second, you've got your 5 chords, which if we make this one a C5, just a straight C5. Exactly as it sounds. You're just leaving out the 3. So you're doing root node 5, root node. You're missing that middle one. So that's a 5th. If you ever see a 5, and this is power chords. So if you ever see C5 or then G5 and D5, they're basically a power chord. So it's saying, if you come to your keyboard, instead of playing the You're just playing the two ends of it. That's your fifth chord. Not really used on the keyboard that much, but you'll see it in tab. So if you play guitar tablature, you'll definitely see it there. We'll go back to chords again. Edit our chords here. So that's all of the different changes that you have there. We've talked about the seventh. The sixth is exactly as it sounds. It adds the sixth note in the scale. We've talked about sevenths, majors, sevenths, ninths, and add ninths. 11ths and 13ths, yeah, you got it. You're doing a seventh chord, but then you're just adding those. So if we have, for instance, we make this C, a C major 13th. Or the 11th chord. And back to our keyboard if you want to see how to play these. It's hard for me to play them all, but... So your 11th is adding the there. So it's hard to get to all the way up there, but that's where you get those really jazzy kind of chords wherever you see 11th or a 13th. Just think that that's just playing like a 7th chord, but continuing it on and adding a whole lot. And when you've got like guitars and things, or you're doing a whole arrangement, quite often someone might just be playing a 7th chord here, but then the actual other notes might be being added by other instruments to complete the chord. So when you have those sort of complex chords that might have more than 5 or 6 notes in them, then you might want to have multiple instruments complementing each other and playing the rest of the chord there. The only final thing that I'll show you here on the chords is the bass note. So if, for instance, we're back here with our C, what you might want is to actually use, say, a G as your bass. So a C major, let's just go nuts. A C major 13th with a G bass is... So you can hear there that the C bass making it sound like it's not resolved. If you had the regular... So you can create some very funky stuff here. We've got a lot of options here to change chords. Now, the cool thing is once you've got your chords set up, you could then just go in here and change your key signature. So say I wanted to go from go over to A major. Now everything. And it's weird. Once you've started playing around with these sort of cool chords, your regular chords just get super dull and boring. That's your basis. So what have we covered here? We've talked about how to identify a major and a minor, your 4 and 3 and 3 and 4 rule. We've talked about how to get to a 7th chord and a major 7th chord as well. We've talked about suspension. Remember, suspension is very simple. Suspended 2, just take it onto the 2 note. Suspended 4, bring that middle note up to the 4 note. And you'll find that suspended chords work really well in a lot of your songs. We've talked about ninths and 11ths and 13ths. That's just adding to the end. We've talked about diminished. So diminished chord is 3 and 3. We've talked about your augmented chord. Your augmented chord is 4 and 4. So all of this stuff is actually pretty simple, but it's like when you start mixing, you think it looks really complicated because it's like a mixer with 16 different faders, but they're all just kind of doing the same thing. And once you understand the basic concept that whenever you see a number, that's talking to that number in the scale. Whenever you see something diminished, it's going down. Whenever you see something augmented, it's going up. And whenever you see that sus2 or sus4, it's just moving that number 3 down to a 2 or that number 3 up to a 4. There you go. Piano music theory in about 25 minutes. Let's go over to the guitar, shall we? Because the guitar is a little bit different. The guitar, as you would know if you've played one, has 6 strings. And the old thing that my wife used to do, she'd pick up my guitar and she'd just strum it. and go, what chord is that? Now, I think it's actually some sort of weird diminished 7th major 13th something. It is actually, because remember, any combination of notes can kind of be represented as a chord. However, it's not a chord that you generally want to use. So your basic, the one chord that most people learn when they're first starting to play guitar is an A major chord. The reason I changed this over into A major is that A major is one of the easiest chords to play on guitar because it is literally those 3 notes. But we'll just turn the volume up a bit so we can hear this a bit better. Plus an open string there and an open string there. So it becomes. So I just did that slowly so I could show you here using the pointer. So open string and then those 3. And if you're playing it with a guitar, you literally just put your 3 fingers together and play it on there and play your open string at the top. You don't play the bottom string at all because it would be an E. And there is no there's no E note in the A major chord. So one of the first things a lot of people learn on guitar is how to do a very basic, simple shape. An A shape there, and it would be. There's your A chord. So the guitar is very different because of the way that the strings are set up. To play different chords, you have different chord shapes. To do like an E minor, you would play down here. You play with these 2. And a lot of people, the ding, ding, a ding, ding, going between A and E minor is like one of the most basic things. Your D chord up the top here is only your 4 notes, and it's very simple. That one is just your. And that's how you play a D chord. Why do you need to know any of this? Why does this matter? Well, it doesn't really, because if you're using GarageBand, you can just go to your chords. Let's change this A that we had here back to its standard A. So we'll just go back to an A with nothing, an A major chord, nothing there. So if you've ever been playing around with guitar here in GarageBand and you've just been strumming, all of these chords aren't exactly what they would sound like on a guitar. The reason that I think a lot of folks, when they're doing virtual guitar stuff in GarageBand, it doesn't sound realistic, is if you compare the A chord that we were playing here before, they're the 5 notes, right? You don't actually play a 6th note. It's very difficult to play a 6th note A chord, whereas if you come out here, it's adding that top note. And if you strum, instead of just strumming if you go, it's like when you're playing drums and you're trying to add in, extra hits. Like I'm guilty of that. It's trying to make your drummer have an extra arm or an extra foot. It doesn't actually work. So if you're playing the A chord, remember here, but it's actually adding the 5th. So you can't technically play that while playing the open string. You can play a variation where you'd go. So you can play those 5 notes. It's very difficult because you've got to stretch your little finger to reach that 5th fret on your top string, but you can't play open and 5th at the same time. And for things like D chords, it's even harder because the D chord generally only has those. Because sometimes you might. But quite often you won't even use that string, and you definitely don't use your bottom E because the D chord has an F. So sometimes what you'll see, some people, the reason that some like jazz guitarists especially, but sometimes in rock, you'll bring your thumb over the top. That's to play this bottom F sharp. So not F, F sharp. So with your D chord, that's how you can construct it there. If you come back out to the chord section here, again, you're playing different notes in there, and you very rarely would play the whole 6 notes every time you're playing a guitar chord. So just keep that in mind, that when you are constructing your chords and you're using them here, especially in GarageBand, for guitars, maybe don't use all 6 of these strings, because you're going to create some chords that guitarists generally don't play. The other thing, of course, you can do is just throw on your autoplay. And that's going to play something more like an actual guitarist is going to be able to play. What do you reckon? You ready to jump in and start using chords and start learning about the different chords? Here's the final thing. If you're zoned out, if you got bored halfway through all of that, just experiment. Some of the funnest things that I've done is just adding in weird and different chords and trying to find a progression that's going to work well. So let's just do that for a final little bit of shits and giggles here. We'll just grab this piano. Let's just make some of the weirdest chords that we can think of. We'll go to chords mode, and we'll just create some random weirdness. So we'll keep the same bases here. So we're going to have the A. Oops, we're going to go to our chords, edit chords. All right, so for our A, let's make this an A. We'll do this in minor. So we'll make this an A minor 11th. And then D major. Why don't we go to say D major with the add ninth? Let's make this a G diminished and add a 6th. No, that's not going to work with this. Why don't we make this a 13th? Another diminished is making it weird. We'll use the suspended too. This one needs a bit of weirdness too. And then we'll just create some bizarro pattern here. All right, we're going to go with this. Let's just record. Is that good? No. E13 sounds right out of place there. But those 3 definitely work together. So if we just did this again, undo that, I kind of like this one. La la la. And then to the la la la. Da 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 da. So you can just find a couple of chords that might work nicely together, and then start building on top of that. So if we just duplicate this out, we'll grab another instrument. Let's see if we can just use another. We'll just add a little oboe part over the top of this, shall we? We'll come out to play it. See, you'll just get different ideas. So again, if you don't even know what the chords are, you're just bollocksing around trying to find something interesting. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that a G11 suspended 2 works really nicely into a D9 chord. But now you do. And now you've got a nice little... And this is how a lot of my songs have come about, by just piss farting around with GarageBand. It's why I love GarageBand. It's one of the best song creation tools going around. That is going to do it. That is going to do it for the chords here. If you do have any final questions, We got ourselves about 10 minutes left just to wind down here. So go ahead and throw your questions in the comments and put a big Q in front of them, just like Rena has done. Where again did you go to tweak the custom chords? Yes. So for those that are joining late or playing along and just want a little bit of additional help with that, your chords, if you're here, the first thing you've got to do is make sure you're in chords mode. So if you're just in your regular piano view here and you go up to the settings, no edit chords. You've actually got to first go to your chord strips view over here on the right, tap that one, and then go up to the top right here, hit your settings, and then hit the edit chords button. And then each one you hit, you then can change it. So let's change this E major 7th because that sounds really bad. Like if we made this an E minor 7th instead. We'll make it an E major 7th because that will sound better. There you go. So every time you tap a chord, you just scroll up and down, and you can change these by using the different labels there. And now that you know all about suspensions and augmentations and diminishments, you'll be able to go in and play with those to your heart's content. Many vibes, amps and pedals in GarageBand are cool or no? Define cool. They are interesting. To be honest, the guitar amps are better. Let's do a demo. We got time for a quick demo. We'll just mute out everything else so that we can just grab this roots rock guitar. So if you're talking in terms of your standard guitar here, it doesn't really have a whole lot of control. You'll see here you've got your treble boost and you've got your echo here. So if we were playing this actually sounds pretty cool on guitar. Let's play along here. So yeah, the only real options you have are whatever the default pedals that you have in here are. So if you wanted to go to the treble boost, or the echo. But as you're saying here, if you're either using your own guitar or you want to move this over to a guitar track, there's a way to do that as well. So because I don't have a guitar plugged in, I'll show you a trick that we can use here, and then I'll show you the amps and the pedals, which are actually really good here in GarageBand iOS. So the trick is to tap on this one and hit the merge button, and then hit merge. This is going to turn this virtual track into an audio track. So now just pretend that we've actually played this. We've played this on a real guitar. Now what we can actually do is set up a guitar track. So just hit plus to go to the new track. Come over here to your amp simulator tracks and just tap on the amp. And now we'll turn on the audio monitoring there. Now you can use a whole bunch of different stuff here. So you can scroll through the different amps that you have. So you've got like a Marshall, you've got an Orange, you've got a Fender, you got all the different, they don't call them those because they can't legally, but you got all the, you know, the types. You know what you're using here. So you go, say the vintage stack, and then it's going to, we can move this track down onto this. So now we're actually playing it through this amp setup. It's going to sound different. So it's a bit harsh now because it's playing through that kind of Marshall stack sound. If we go for something a bit more mellow, like the Fender kind of sound here. And now we can start tweaking. So a bit too much treble on that. So you can adjust the EQ of your amp. Give it a nice, more mellow tone. And then the fuzz machine is not the amp pedal that we want here. So if you tap on that, we can choose something else. So for something like this, you'd probably want to go like, not the compressor, but we'll tap again, tap it. Maybe like the echo here. So there's blue echo pedal. So we'll tap on the blue echo pedal now. And you can add a second pedal here. So now we may want to add the chorus. That's sounding cool. And now maybe we want a little phase trip at the end. little bit too much with the tripper. So, but you can turn them on and off there. So you can add, I think, up to, how many pedals can you have? Up to 4 pedals. So you can have like, then you can just kick them on and off. I really like that riff. It kind of sounds a bit like the start of Aeroplane by Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like, especially, not this one, but this one here, like this bit here. Then it goes a different direction, but I like it. I like pleasure spike with pain, and music is my aeroplane. So that's how you do it. Maybe for your song timbre song, maybe use the diminished 13 chord at the end of the song. Yeah, I could totally do that. Yeah, that was it. That's a good chord. I like it. So yeah, there's fun to be had with different chords. You'll find that you don't just have to stick to the 1, 4, 5, 6 majors, minors, and basic sevenths. There's a whole lot of fun and excitement out there. Yeah, make your own pedal boards, and you can. Here's the cool thing, Many Vibes. What you can then do is, once you've actually got something to like, see how on the top left here, it's got this. We can actually hit the save button, and then you can actually save this in. So you could call this Mellow Vibes. You can create your own presets in here. So that'll save it into the custom set here. And then say you've changed it to like a different setup here. Anytime you want to go back to exactly that rig, you go to custom, you go to Mellow Vibes, and it rehashes exactly the settings that you've got there. And so you can save in a whole bunch of your own presets using the amps and the pedals. They're actually a lot better than you'd think. A lot of people poo-poo them and use third-party stuff, but they haven't dived deeply enough in here. Because, I mean, you got, I think, what are there? I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different amp sims, and then you've got 10 different pedals to play with. So there's mix and match combinations galore to keep you happening. All right, that is going to do it for this weekend's live shows. I did want to thank you and invite you to hit the thumbs up button down below if you have had a bit of fun with us over the weekend, whether you watch Your Music Live or the Happy Hour or this show or the podcast this weekend. Before we go, I would be remiss if I didn't give you one final reminder to jump your butt on over to studiolivetoday.com. In fact, you could go to studiolivetoday.com/songtember if you want to go straight in to the Songtember goodness. There you can catch the preview video. If you haven't already watched that one, you can jump in there and check the couple of minutes of just a little bit about Songtember and let me know that you're in there. And the live launch party is kicking off. There you go, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and the big question mark, which is, what is this going to be? What song are we going to create in our big 5th anniversary? So that one is kicking off. It's an early show, so it means it's going to be early in the morning, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. for our UTC folks. So hopefully if you're in the UK or Europe, you'll be able to stay up to catch the launch party show there and to find out about Songtember 2023. Go set yourself a reminder now. In fact, after this show, you'll be dumped out there. So hit the like button, give me a pre-like, set yourself a reminder, and make sure you're lined up for our big launch of Songtember 2023. That's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all of your support. Thank you to my patrons. Thank you to the wonderful moderators of the channel, and all of you viewers that are out there and that ask the great questions and provide great insights and support and content for me on the channel. Could not do it without you. It is all about you. As we say at the end of each and every show, please be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Keep creating, and I'll see you next time here on GarageBand Weekly. Bye.